Hi, everybody. Good evening and welcome back to the last show this week, falling on the 16th day of October, where weather-wise we're talking about a lot of high pressure and a lot of cold air. All that high pressure is going to help usher in some of the coldest air of the season thus far. And in lieu of that fact, we have a frost advisory out for late tonight, early tomorrow morning, and a freeze watch in effect for tomorrow night and Sunday morning. And that means anything that's colorful and pretty that you want to keep alive, you need to take care of over the course of your weekend. Headlines tonight will include indictments returned by Magoffin County Grand Jury, coverage of the Magoffin County Board of Education session from last night. We'll talk about football night, and it is indeed football night for most of the area teams that will be watching. And coverage of today's fiscal court meeting. The meeting in and of itself was relatively brief, but served an important purpose to approve some minutes and then thus set officially all the tax rates for the county, not just the ones that the county levies, but also the library, soil and conservation, extension service, and health department taxes as well. And I'll go over all of those for you in some detail this evening. Not only do we have a lot of news, we've got a lot of announcements and things to talk about as well, and I've got news already put on hold to start off next week, so certainly not a shortage of it there. I'm very fortunate to be able to bring you an update tonight about a story that I ran last evening about a retired mail carrier in Magoffin County who was caught on a corn picker yesterday and had to be airlifted to a trauma center. I am told, after checking up on him today, that Flint Arnott is doing well, and in fact, miraculously, his arm that was compressed for a significant amount of time in that corn picker and had no feeling therein for such a long period of time afterwards, it basically is bruised, I'm sure, from one end to the other, but is going to require no surgery, no bones were broken, and he is, I'm sure, considering himself a very fortunate person. His leg, he did have a fracture, and I'm told they're waiting to see whether or not surgery will be required to patch up those injuries, but he does have some recovery period ahead of him, obviously, but certainly a miraculous turnaround from what we had feared yesterday after being stuck in that piece of farm equipment for some time after his shirt sleeve, a loose sleeve, was what got caught and then pulled him in. I got an advisory today from the Sagersville City Council. They have rescheduled their monthly meeting from this coming Monday the 19th to the following on the 26th. They said they will send me an agenda prior to the meeting. I'll remind you next week, but wanted to make sure he mentioned it to you this evening. City Council bumped up a week, not this Monday, but the following. And a little on down the road, and actually not all that far, I suppose, next Saturday, not tomorrow, but the following, they're going to close down an 8-mile section of the Dawkins Line Rail Trail for a very good reason. It's because they're going to have it open to traffic on horse-drawn buggies and carriages. Now, the trail is going to be closed to the public otherwise from Royalton to Swamp Branch from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. This is Saturday the 24th for the equestrian event involving horses and buggies. They're closing it to other traffic just for safety purposes, obviously. The Dawkins Line Rail Trail, of course, is the 18-mile, soon-to-be 36-mile trail that has been garnering so much deserved attention from so many folks here and elsewhere. And I'll be reminding you next week of that buggy event to be held once again, that portion of the trail on Saturday the 24th. Magoffin County Fiscal Court met in a special session earlier today with the purpose of approving minutes of prior meetings and ultimately finalizing tax rates for all taxing districts and the county itself. While the business before the court was merely just approving the minutes of two past meetings, the most recent meetings, it did take several minutes to do. The last meeting, much of the meeting was dedicated to setting tax rates, that being real and personal property. And if you'll recall, per my report, there were several motions for several different rates, and none of them falling to a 2-2 vote. And thus, as I understand, defaulting, if you will, to the compensating rate, which is a rate set by the state. Therefore, after approving the minutes today for that meeting and the one prior, the county's tax rate will go into effect as follows, and as I mentioned during the last report. The real property rate for the county will go from 37.2 cents per $100 evaluation to 43.6 cents per $100 evaluation. The personal/tangible properties will go from 55.97, right at 56 cents per $100 evaluation, to 71.31 cents of valuation. Those were the compensating rates that were adjusted or set by the state. Now, they didn't. That was not rates that the fiscal court had to go by, but with a 2-2 vote, as two magistrates voted in favor of keeping the personal or the real property tax rate the same, and then raising the personal property rate a smaller amount than the 71.31, that vote not passing. As I said before, we do believe the compensating rates now go into effect, and those being 43.6 and 71.31 respectively. And this chart that I received a copy of today shows the other tax rates which have been set for the McGoffin County Public Library Board, the Soil and Conservation District, the Extension Service District, and the Health Department rates, going from left to right, starting with the Library Board, going from 8.7 down the list. The top two are the ones that we'll mainly be focusing on tonight for all of these taxing districts, as the bottom two numbers are the motor vehicle and watercraft tax rates, and those haven't changed for years and did not change this time, but those are what they collect for each of these taxing districts. But the Library Board tax rate, for example, for real property has now gone per the adjustment made by the Library Board from 7.6 cents per $100 evaluation to the, now you can see, 8.7 cents, a larger increase for the personal property tax rates, which was at 10.69, and it now goes to 16.25 cents, nearly about 5.5 cents increase there for the personal or tangible properties. The Soil and Conservation District tax stayed the same. It was left alone by that board at 1.4, as was the Health Department tax. It was left the same by that board as well at 8 cents for both. That's 8 cents for every $100 evaluation for real property and for personal or tangible property. The Extension Service also took the compensating rate. That will be an increase from 8.9 cents to, as you can see here in the top line, 10.2 cents per $100 evaluation. And the personal property tax increase for the Extension Service went from 12.64 to 19.42. And that for the personal and tangible property. And once again, the Soil Conservation and the Health Department rates remained the same as last year. In other headlines, the sitting McGoffin County Grand Jury has returned several indictments, many of them drug and theft related. The grand jury chose to indict Amanda Lynn Charles, a Louisville resident, the age of 33. The case presented to the grand jury by City Police Officer Mike Nichols, in which she is now charged formally with charges of trafficking in a controlled substance, that being methamphetamine, possession of methamphetamine, endangering the welfare of a minor, that being 2 separate counts. She was also indicted on possession of drug paraphernalia, operating a motor vehicle under the influence of alcohol and or drugs, and operating on a non-valid or expired operator's license. The 7-count indictment, actually the 8-count indictment, also has her indicted on a charge of reckless driving. 19-year-old James Howard of Lick Creek Road in McGoffin County was indicted after Detective Jason Dials brought evidence before the sitting grand jury, and he was thusly indicted on a charge of criminal abuse in the first degree, the victim a child under the age of 12. 28-year-old Brandon Shepard of Sagersville was indicted on a charge of assault in the second degree for causing serious physical injury to a Jim Cravens on or around the 11th day of April of this year. Year-old Jessica Prater Arnett of Sagersville was indicted formally on charges of criminal possession of a forged instrument in the second degree and theft by unlawful taking under $500. This for stealing and then forging a check that belonged to another individual, a Dale Prater of Sagersville. These acts happening sometime around the 16th day of May of 2015. That case brought before the grand jury by Officer Mike Nichols of the Sagersville Police Department. Trooper Justin Wireman brought charges and information and/or evidence against Brandon L. Perkins of Paintsville, a 29-year-old who the grand jury indicted on a charge of burglary in the third degree for burglarizing a residence or structure belonging to a Michael Cole. The grand jury further indicted, after hearing evidence brought from Trooper Joe Weddington of the Kentucky State Police, 34-year-old John Daniel Mullins of Sagersville, indicted on charges of theft by unlawful taking, disposition of a motor vehicle, burglary in the third degree, criminal trespassing in the second degree, fleeing and or evading police in a motor vehicle in the second degree, and being a persistent felony offender. The indictment alleges that sometime around the 23rd day of August, he stole a vehicle belonging to a Danny Porter, also charged with burglary of a structure owned by Margie Salyer. He was also charged with criminal trespassing as well, per the indictment. And then when police initiated a traffic stop or attempted to stop him after he was spotted, that he attempted to elude them in that motor vehicle. And for previous charges, he was considered to be a persistent felony offender, per the indictment. 35-year-old James Stephen Rao of Elkhorn City was indicted after a case brought before the grand jury by Mike Nichols indicated that he was guilty, or he should be investigated, I should say, as all indictments are not a declaration of guilt but merely charges levied by the grand jury. Nevertheless, on charges in this case of possession of a controlled substance in the first degree, first offense, possession of marijuana, driving on a DUI suspended license, and operating a motor vehicle under the influence with aggravated circumstances, which of course will increase all the before-mentioned charges. Trooper Jonathan Corey brought a case against 36-year-old Kevin Fairchild of Sigersville before the grand jury, who thusly indicted him on charges of trafficking in a controlled substance first degree, that being less than 10 dosage units of the drug, also trafficking in marijuana, an amount of 8 ounces to less than 5 pounds, that being a first offense. He was also indicted on charges of possession of a controlled substance in the first, possession of a controlled substance in the third, possession of drug paraphernalia, and possession of a controlled substance not in its original container. Besides the marijuana, the drugs listed in the indictment are said to have been methamphetamine and oxycodone. 37-year-old Rose Washington of Lexington was indicted after a case was brought by Sigersville police officer Mike Nichols, and she was indicted on a charge of possession of a controlled substance in the first degree that's said to be a Schedule II narcotic, believed to have been oxycodone in her possession. 2 people were indicted on similar charges, both of Sigersville and Angus McPherson, as well as an Evelyn McPherson, on charges of theft by deception after Gerald Salyer of Salyer Plumbing testified before the grand jury that sometime on or around the 23rd day of April, they rendered a check in the amount of $4,477 and some change for payment, knowing that it would not be honored by the drawee for services that were said to have been done by Salyer Plumbing. And 27-year-old Travis Owens of Meadoryville, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Indiana, was indicted on charges of trafficking in a controlled substance, possession of a controlled substance, possession of paraphernalia, operating a motor vehicle under the influence of drugs, no license, and possession of a controlled substance in the third degree after a case was presented to the grand jury by City Police Officer Mike Nichols of Sigersville for events that took place on around the 28th day of July, when he was said to be in possession of a variety of narcotics and or illegal drugs, that being Xanax and other drugs that are just listed as unspecified. He was also indicted on charges of carrying a concealed deadly weapon. And the sitting Johnson County grand jury has also returned 18 indictments this week. I'll be covering those on next week's programming. Well, our friends over at Hutch have got their big Midnight Madness sale. It ends tomorrow night at midnight, so you've got time to take in. Every customer gets to shoot for a chance to win prizes up to $1,000 in cash. They've got special discounts up to $10,000. No payments on any vehicle purchase between now and midnight tomorrow night until 2016. They're giving away a total of 20 Christmas vacations, and they've got special rates on used vehicles as low as 1.9%, and that's pretty much unheard of. Their biggest sale, they say, in 15 years, and one where you can always check out the new Chrysler 200. To get high-speed internet on their state-of-the-art fiber optic network for all of your home and business solutions, or to watch TV without a contract on over 200 digital channels with superb quality, or stay connected with family and friends with 24/7 telephone service you can always depend on, contact Foothills Broadband today. Or just click on their link to the right to find out how they're working to provide the latest in communications at affordable prices with exceptional service at Foothills Broadband. A big slope to throw some water off a new multi-million-dollar athletic complex, an update on the Montgomery County High School building itself, and other items discussed in last night's regular session of the Montgomery County Board of Education. The meeting began with a motion to transfer $5 million of the $16 million the school system has been holding in CDs for some time to pay down on construction debt and cost. Bill Cobb, the construction manager, gave an update on several ongoing projects, saying that rains had delayed the baseball and softball field project, but that they were nearing completion. As for the gym of the new high school, it had not been progressing, he says, as fast as they'd hoped. They'd hoped to have it roofed in by Christmas. It will not affect the move-in date for next school year. It just means that their crews will be working in the cold weather and outside instead of being in a roofed-in enclosure, but that painting and ceiling installation was going on in the high school in and of itself. And later, board attorney Don McFarland voiced some questions that had been posed to him by members of the public, he said, concerning a grading issue with the baseball field. The issue comes after, as I understand, after a drainage system that was to be placed under the grass itself was value engineered out, meaning that there was not enough money in the budget to see that it was put into the project, but that they went with a perimeter drainage system instead. That means that there will be a significant slope from center to both or all edges of the field in order to push the water to that drainage system. It is something, however, they say they can add at a later time.
Bill, how about the grade on the, just the grade on the field? Because I've caught a lot of heat on that as a board attorney. They asked me, they said, Don, it's 5 foot higher in right field than it is in left field.
Yes.
I was like, left field's going to hold water. Why is that so steep? They correlate me all the time. I was like, I haven't looked at it. I've looked at pictures. I don't know.
I'll tell you what I'm aware of. I'm not the design team, and I don't want to speak out of turn for him, but from what I understand, what you've got, that there is a slope 5 feet from one to the other. And there are some factors that I understand contributing to that. One is money and real estate that you've got available. We took off that point that used to be where your access road is up top. That point used to come way out there.
Yeah, I did.
We chipped that rock out, and we only chipped it out so far. If we'd have chipped it back any further to allow for that end to go on down, which would have been more rock excavation, it would have took your road out up top. And early on, in one of your earlier designs, if I'm not mistaken, there was money for a retaining wall to take more of that slope out, put a retaining wall in. And that was several $1,000s. So that retaining wall was taken out, the slope pulled out, and it just, you know, the land you had to deal with and the money just really dictated your design. It's unfortunate that it wouldn't, from my eyes, didn't kind of perceive what was going on, but it's just what your drawings had. But you are correct, it is a 5 foot elevation, but the existing terrain and then the money that you had to have got the drain to be high in the middle and drain both sides, you'd have to have more room on that right hand side. You'd have to took the bank back and drop the grade down, which would have been more rock excavation, and you'd have lost your access road.
Later, Director of Student Services Brian Conley gave an update on attendance for the school system to date. North Magoffin Elementary running at 94%, Salyersville Grade School, South Magoffin, and the high school running at 92% each, and the middle school just under 92%. He says they're still working to combat truancy with letters going out to homes on the school and district level, home visits on the school and district level, and that he and family resource individuals are going out and making home visits to any students which are considered to be truant. He says it's basically a generational type issue that will take some time to correct, but they have a great optimism that they will be able to do so. Superintendent Stanley Holbrook gave some results of a statewide survey. It's a survey done in all school districts where they ask all of their staff anonymously to weigh in and give an opinion on a number of aspects within the school system.
Stanley Holbrook, Superintendent.
I'm going to go over the test score results are all out now, and the TAIL survey. The TAIL survey, we survey all the staff at every school in the county. It's done anonymous, and it's done statewide. And they have results here. Like one of the questions, several questions deal with managing student conduct, and on a state level, 82.4% of the faculty was satisfied with the management of student conduct. And in our school district, it's 88.9%, which is considerably higher than the state average. Community engagement and support from the community, on a state level, it's 85%. In Magoffin County, it's 87%. School leadership, In the state, it's 87%, in McGoffin County, it's 93%. Teacher turnover, on the state level, it runs about 17%. McGoffin County runs 7.6%. We have a lot less turnover than the state average. On the percentage of new Kentucky intern program teachers, state runs 7.3, we run 3.3, still less than that. So in every category that we measured, we were better than the state average.
Holbrook also reminded the board that the system has been in the top 10 most improved school districts out of all 173 for the last 2 years of testing, and that during the next meeting, principals from all schools will be present to present their plans to continue to improve scores. He also cited a declining school district status for McGoffin County, learning that it's been that way for 22 years, saying that he went back through records and found that they have not had an increase in student enrollment for 22 years now in a row, citing the economy in which families and then graduating students move away to find employment. And lastly, in business from the floor, Mr. Brent Patrick questioned the legality and ethics of board member attendance, questioning the issue that for several of the last meetings that board member David Smith has been in attendance, it has been through video conference.
Under the Open Meetings Act, it is allowed under KRS 61 to have someone like David here today just through a video teleconference. As long as he's allowed to be here, he's allowed to participate and by video, but he cannot go in closed session. That's the only thing he can't do.
Special meetings, you mean?
Special meetings, he could participate in a special meeting. He just couldn't go into a closed session.
No closed sessions.
Yeah, he could do a special meeting as long as it's advertised the correct way.
Well, my question, are they any fine print stating, like using this robot or whatever it is, I don't know, but, I mean, are there anything stipulating, I know what you're saying that it's legal to use that, but I could understand where it be maybe legal to use it, but in an emergency or something. What I'm getting at, I mean, using it all the time. Because every board member, what if they wanted to have a screen and we'd all be looking at TVs here?
Real quickly, going back to the baseball field, I did go today to see if I could see the issue they were speaking of, and it is quite obvious. From far right to far left, there is a continuous slope, and it is 5 feet lower in elevation to the far left. The school system tells me that the entire complex was built up to Kentucky High School Athletic Association code, and that without investing another few $1 million, that this was the option that they had. Before I go to the calendar, a few other reminders for the weekend. Don't forget the Kentucky Humanities Council has that Chautauqua series tomorrow at the McGoffin County Health Department. It is free, and it's brought to you by the McGoffin County Civil War Committee. Starts at 6. There are 2 series tomorrow night. One is Colonel Harlan Sanders. The other is Grandpa Jones, country musician and comic. Free, all sponsored by our McGoffin County Civil War Committee. Starts at 6 tomorrow night. I promise you'll have a good time. They're in revival at the Bloomington United Baptist Church. They start every night at 7 p.m. for the next several nights, and this is your invitation to join them for revival at the Bloomington United Baptist Church. And Bluegrass Championship Wrestling is back at the Paintsville Recreational Center tomorrow evening. Bell time is at 8. The main event will be the Bluegrass Championship Wrestling Championship. It's a full card with 2 surprise matches, they tell me. Once again, bell time at 8 tomorrow night, and that is the Paintsville Rec Center. Here's the rest of calendar announcements and reminders brought to you by McGoffin Farm Bureau. A reminder about the Mountain of Hope Christian Camp free Christian concert tomorrow on Old Burning Fork Road, noon till 6, featuring Southern Gospel Bluegrass and contemporary Christian music. Bring a chair and bring yourself free hamburgers, free hot dogs. Bring some family with you as well. 496-5415 if you have any questions. They're near Howard's Branch there. They'll have some signs posted. Can't miss them. It'll be a wonderful afternoon. The Bradley Free Will Baptist Church is homecoming and old-fashioned day this Sunday. They'll have dinner following the Sunday services. And that is all that I've got time for, and that's all I've got calendar-wise. I haven't done this. I can't tell you. It's been years, but I am looking as though the program is going to run about 4 or 5 or 6 minutes long at this point. So it is right now 30 minutes in. I'm going to break for some commercial messages. Depending on what show you're watching, I think at Foothills on 7 and 11, you'll see both shows in their entirety. And I'm assuming David Blair is going to have some programming starting at 6:30, so he'll have to switch on over to that at this time. And for the rest of the show, you can catch it at 11 o'clock, or you can always, of course, catch it on our website at yournewstoday.com. newstoday.com. My apologies, but having too much news is a good problem to have, and that has certainly been an issue now for, well, longer than I can remember, as we're trying to cover as much as possible. So with that said, a few words from a few of our sponsors. The show will return for most everyone, I believe, right after these messages. Well, just how cold is it going to be for football tonight? Who's playing football? And then how cold is it going to be tomorrow night and into your Saturday? What about this frost advisory and freeze warning as well? Well, it's a freeze watch, actually. I have a good idea that it might be closer to a warning before it's all over. Nevertheless, we'll answer all those questions right now, beginning with who's on the gridiron tonight and what you need to probably wear if you're going to take in some high school football. Starting off with the Golden Eagles, who are now in Week 7 after a win over Greenup. They are still undefeated. 35-6 last week puts them at 6-0, 3-0, 3-0 in regional and district play. That also puts them at home hosting Rowan County tonight at 7:30. While everyone will end at the same time roughly, Magafa County is in Week 8, and this is after a win. And, of course, they had last week off, that win over Knott County 54-35. They're at 2-5 on the season, and they're hoping to pick up a much-needed game tonight against Breathitt County. That will be a district win. They're hosting Breathitt at 7:30. The Cougars in Morgan County on their 8th week as well. They're at 4-3, just above the 500 mark, and that is, of course, after a loss, 2 losses in a row, the most recent to Knott County, and that was last Friday night, 32-36, 4-3, 1-2 in district play. They're on the road tonight at Elliott County. Kickoff 2 set for 7:30. The Tigers in their Week 9 and still undefeated, 8-0, and they're hosting Raceland next Friday. That's right, the Tigers are off, getting a little rest tonight. We'll be back hosting Raceland at home 1 week from tonight. And here's a very short and not-so-sweet Licking Valley RECC forecast. A frost advisory in effect tonight, 3 in the morning till 9 in the morning under mostly clear skies. We will see a low tonight expected to be right around 34 degrees. And as high pressure opens the floodgates and lets all this cold air in, well, tomorrow we'll see some frost in the morning, some sunshine, only warming up to 54 degrees. Tomorrow night's low now adjusted to 28. Some frost on the backside of your Saturday, and that, of course, is going to be accompanied by a freeze advisory in effect Saturday night and into your Sunday as well. Sunday 54, frost started off at a low of 29. We will start to recover next week. Monday, the low 60s, mid to upper by Tuesday and Wednesday, and maybe even 70 degrees before week's end. Well, that's it for us. Another week where we have done absolutely everything to bring you as much news as possible, and news that you'll only see here on Your News Today. For now, thank you for watching and being a part of the program. We hope you have a safe and warm weekend. If you're cranking up that heat for the first time, remember to do so with a little extra caution, and we'll see you back here Monday for more of Your News Today. Thank you, and good night.